This team is exciting. I'm excited to make this video. And they're very easy to root for as well. I'll be honest, I've never had a team outside of Borussia Dortmund, in Europe at least. I had my local FC Cincinnati, but they didn't exist until I was 20 years old. That's just football in America. But I've been playing and watching football much before that, and Dortmund's always been my club. I've never had a Premier League team, a La Liga team, a Serie A team until now. I'm signing a 1-year contract deal with Como as a fan, rooting for them in the Serie A because, to be honest, how can you not? An underdog club that somehow made it into the Serie A, and now they are making moves, okay? They are not here to mess around. They are here to join the Serie A and to stay in the Serie A. And they have made, I mean, if you think Chelsea have made some transfers, a lot of transfers, wait until you see the list of transfers that Como have made in their year getting promoted into the Serie A. But I guess that if your stadium looks like this, then it's a little bit easier to bring players in. I mean, it's literally a vacation destination. That is Como 1907 Stadium. That is beautiful. I would take a little bit lower wages to go play here. Obviously, I don't really have the choice. And I've played at decent levels. In fact, I played at a very high level of arena soccer here in the USA, in which a lot of the players that I played with and against went to a tournament called the TST tournament. And the TST tournament, I don't think I have anything pulled up. Do I? Yeah, right here. Como Cagliari played in the TST tournament. It was a combination of players from both of these teams. And one of the players that was there was Patrick Cutrone. He just got transferred from Wolverhampton to Como. And he was obviously a big name going into that tournament. But there are some players that went to that tournament that made me look silly. And then Patrick Cutrone made them look silly. It really shows you the levels that you're just not even close to being a high-level professional player, because these guys are just so good. But I digress. This stadium is beautiful, and it makes it a little bit easier to bring talent in. And it would be actually the smallest stadium in Serie A if Venezia didn't also get promoted. The Giuseppe Sinigaglia holds 13,602 people. The Pierluigi Penzo in Venezia holds 11,150. And I'll be honest, also looks pretty awesome. I don't know if every single Serie A stadium looks like this, but they're all literal vacation destinations, it seems. Like Venezia, that's beautiful. That is literally beautiful. And their kits are awesome too for Venezia. But I digress. Obviously, Como getting promoted into the Serie A means that they're going to need to pick up some talent, and that's exactly what they have done. And this is the list of all of their arrivals. That's a lot of players. So let's go ahead and dive into it, because there's some players that are players you wouldn't expect to sign for a small club like this, like Raphael Varane. Raphael Varane just left Manchester United to sign with Como 1907. And it really, I'm not sure what kind of wages they're offering him, but Como don't have the kind of money that these other clubs do. And so either their cash injection for getting promoted into the Serie A is absolutely astonishing, or Raphael Varane is just not getting paid nearly as much as he was at Real Madrid or Manchester United. We'll take a look at some of those wages here in a second, but Alberto Moreno, you might remember him from his Liverpool days or at Villarreal over the last few years. He is absolutely going to be the starting left back. And then Pepe Reina joining from Villarreal as well. Now, Pepe Reina, on the other hand, is 79 years old. So that is a problem, which means that they are splashing some cash on a player from Sampdoria, Emil Audero, $6 million. And I think he's going to be the starter. Pepe Reina will probably be the backup. But that brings me into Andrea Belotti, another stud from Serie A. Now, Andrea Belotti was one of the best strikers in Serie A and was even considered one of the best strikers in the world for a couple of years when he was at Torino. You can see how his market value rose all the way up to 40 million when he was at Torino back in 2017 and kind of stayed up there for 3 years. Now, he tapered off a little bit and got a little bit older, so his market value was going to go down, but it wasn't until he transferred to Roma when it all came crashing down, because he went to Roma. He wasn't starting a lot of games, but he was playing in a lot of games, and he wasn't scoring any goals. In fact, he got 32 appearances in this season and 0 goals. Now, the next year, he didn't get as many appearances, started scoring a little bit more, and then went off to Fiorentina for like half of a year. But it's definitely not the form he was in a couple years ago. But when you take a risk on a striker who has already proved himself in Serie A, you're just hoping for the fact that he can regain some of that form. He is only 30 years old, and he could have some juice left in him. So with the projected lineup, you're going to be looking at Emil Audero, Moreno, Varane, and then you've also got Coutron, who I talked about earlier, who I think is still a stud, and then Belotti. Now, they also went out and splashed some cash on a guy named Stravezza. Now, I haven't seen Stravezza play in Serie A. I truthfully haven't watched much Serie A over the last year. But they're splashing 8 mil on Docena, 8 mil on Engelhart, 6 mil on Audero, 5 mil on Stravezza. And then you've also got a couple of players that they've bought for a little over £1 million. The rest of these are free transfers or they're returning from a loan. And they haven't gotten much money from selling players either. So where is this money coming from? Well, it's straight up from their marketing and straight up from getting promoted into the Serie A. Cesc Fabregas is their manager as well, which is pretty exciting. So that's a lot of the reason why these Spanish players are actually joining. You can see coming in from Villarreal, you have Alberto Moreno and Pepe Reina. That's the pull that Cesc Fabregas has. And so that is a big reason why not only Como has been promoted, but also why Como have a good chance of staying up in the Serie A this year. But the only problem is if they don't stay up in the Serie A and they're signing some of these players to multi-year contracts, they're going to have a big issue with their wage bills come next year. So let's take a look at some of the wage bills for this team. Now, look at Juventus, just for reference, okay? This is Juventus' wage bills, and you can just look at Dusan Vlahovic, who's the highest paid player for Juventus. He might be the highest in Serie A. I haven't looked at all the teams, but he's getting 427 million euros a week, okay? 22.2 million a year. You take a look at Como, on the other hand, and it's not fully updated for the new players that joined like Moreno and Varane, but the entire team combined was only 14,920,000 a year, which is 7 million less than Vlahovic alone, not even counting all the other Juventus players. So the budget is so much less. And as you can see, they haven't added Belotti yet. He's obviously going to get paid a decent bit. Varane, I would assume, is going to be the highest paid player. And even 79-year-old Pepe Reina is looking at almost $1 million a year. Now, obviously, they have to bring in some of these big players so that they can stay up in Serie A. The only problem is if their contracts are for more than a year and they get relegated, then they still have those wages to pay. And you see a lot of clubs struggle in those situations, which is exactly why Nottingham Forest was so desperate to stay up in the Premier League over the last couple of seasons after they spent a lot of money to bring in players, because when you get to the higher divisions, you're going to make more revenue from TV deals especially. Now, in the Serie B of Italy, you're getting about 8 million in revenue from the TV rights. But in the Serie A, you're making at least 30 million. Now, if you take a look at last year, or this is 2 years ago, you can see that the lowest paid team from TV deals was about 30 million, which was Empoli, Spezia, and Cremonese. So you're going to probably see a similar amount for Como, given the fact that they're brand new to the league. But 30 million is going to cover pretty much all of these expenses alone. And that doesn't even consider the fact that they're going to be able to make a lot more off ticket sales being in the Serie A, not just from away fans, but the own interest of the community around them is going to grow. So I know that they're probably not a club or in a league like the Premier League that's going to spike the ticket sales all too much, but it's definitely going to go up a little bit, and that's going to help fund these wages, which is obviously going to be an issue if they can't stay up. But when they're only at 15 million right now, they have to add Belotti, Varane, and Moreno to the books and a couple of others. It's going to take it up to probably over 20 mil, but that leaves them with a decent bit to spare. And a lot of that decent bit to spare, they're spending on the transfers themselves, because we took a look at the expenditure versus the income, and the expenditure is much higher than the income. So if they're not able to get players off their contracts and sell them for income over the next few years, like Varane or Belotti, and they can't make a few million back, then they would be heavily in the hole. But I don't think they will be, because as I said, I'm a Como fan and I believe in them. I'm rooting for them. I think they will stay up. I think they'll shock the world, and they're going to put up a performance in the Serie A this season. Let me know what position of Serie A you think they're going to finish this year. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys again in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, by the way. We need to hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm going to keep reminding you of that.